And he goes by a lot of names. Mystic Spider-Man, Skull Babylon, and a few others. I always just thought he was Brendan. And I've been talking for a few months about how when he's at the back of the room as our videographer, you might not really appreciate just how powerful a creator is back there. He's also jumped in to do this on short notice because of a last minute change of plans with somebody else for tonight. And he was right there when I needed him, just like he's there leading the charge for good. Literally for people all around the world, but from right here in London. And he's going to share a story next. Rising to the call of consciousness, how I became the superhero I always was. Here's Brendan Bulmer.
To that, okay? When I say free, you say hugs. Free! Hugs! Free! Hugs! Alright, that's a good way to get started. Cool. Alright, so first of all, thank you everyone so much for being here. This is amazing just to be able to have this opportunity. And so, why I'm here. I want to be able to tell you not just who I am, not just what I do, but why I do what I do. So Brendan Culleton, aka Mystic Spider-Man, aka Skull Babylon on YouTube. The director of Paradigm Shift Central, an international global project that helps support conscious media creators and leaders worldwide. I'm an award-winning Canadian filmmaker. I've done over 1 million videos, 5,000 live broadcasts, and I've given out over 10 billion hugs. Some numbers are just a little bit of an exaggeration, but you get the point. So, in order to be able to tell you what I do and who I am and why I do, of course, I have to go back to the beginning, because out of this story, I want you to be able to understand what it means to be a superhero, what it means to be a real-world superhero, and how that's not something distant. It's not something that we just see up on the silver screen reflecting back on us. It's not just something that we see in a comic book. Maybe there's something really to that. Maybe there's a power right here inside each and every single one of us. And all we have to do is nurture it. All we have to do is awaken it. So like I said, I've been creating videos on the internet, I've been building this community, I've been helping build a global team of shifters, people who are intentionally helping assist with the shift in consciousness through acts of creativity and compassion. We do live broadcasts, I have people across the world helping them create media and encouraging them to go out there and do things like free hugs, to be able to plant seeds, to be able to build community, to be able to bring people together, to help lead by example, and to be able to help shift the paradigms. So this story, like I said, it begins when I was a young boy, because like any superhero story, of course, there is an origin story. And so with mine, I was always very curious growing up. A lot of that I can attribute to my grandfather. He was the type of person when the time came for him to leave this dimension, he bestowed upon me his books of many renditions of parapsychology, life beyond death, lucid dreaming, Are UFOs Real? All of these weird, peculiar books that you would find in the back of bookstores, and they always had that strange smell to them. So anyways, growing up as a kid, I was always curious. I always wanted to know, how do things work? I was the type of kid who would have a toy, and then I would take it apart just to be able to learn how it worked, and then eventually I would try to put it back together. Sometimes it would work, sometimes it wouldn't. But anyways, growing up in school, I was kind of this between two worlds kind of kid. I was really into the drama, the arts, so I was kind of a nerd, but at the same time, I grew up playing hockey. Hockey was a big part of my life, and in fact, I was team captain numerous times over and over and over again, something that later on would lead to be a part of who I came to be. Being a leader was a natural part of my calling. And so growing up in high school, I was just kind of doing my thing, and eventually I started finding my passion, and it turned out to be video editing. It turned out to be media. I was fascinated by it. I was fascinated by the power of storytelling. And so eventually I went to university, graduated from Western and Fanshawe for the program of media theory and production. And around the time, actually a bit before I even got into university, the internet started really becoming a thing. And if you've ever spent some time on the internet, you know there's some pretty interesting theories out there, a lot of ideas. And it was around the time of 1999 that I saw one of the movies that would end up changing my life. Yes, that's right. The Matrix, which I would later find out was actually a documentary. So anyways, growing up in university, eventually I was just naturally, asking a lot of these questions myself, asking the important questions, like, what is the nature of this reality? What does it mean to be a human being? Is there life beyond death? Does Sasquatch really exist? Are there other sort of conspiracies out there? All sorts of things, you name it. It was right up my alley because, again, I was curious. I was curious and I was seeking not just answers, but also experiences. Eventually, through my experiences in university, I started finding some other friends, some youth like myself who were also curious, who were also asking these questions. And suddenly I realized, I'm like, okay, I'm not the only one here. There's something else going on here. There's other people who are asking questions. There's other people who are waking up. There's other people who want to learn more than just what I was being taught in school. Flash forward a couple of years, and by the end of my career in university and college, the universe sent me out to the West Coast. There was an internship position that I was out there. And so I got the calling sent me over there, the journey to the West. And again, all of this leading up to me becoming the superhero that I always was. And what do I mean by that? The fact that becoming the superhero that I always was implies that it was always inside of me. It implies that it was perhaps always meant to be. It was a future that I was coming in to see. And so when I went out to the Vancouver area, that was my first time just kind of living alone. And I got to spend a lot of time going into those bookstores and actually finding a lot of those books like what my grandfather used to have. Spending a lot of time just on my own, reading, doing some yoga, spending some time by the water, connecting with nature, finding out who I was. And I started seeing things, and things started waking up within inside of me. I started having what were known as synchronicities. Numbers started popping up. The universe was talking to me. The language of the universe was becoming apparent. Things weren't just happenstance. There was something else going on. And so as I continued my time on this journey, eventually the universe would connect me with someone who would change my life. And as I was sitting there journaling in my book, watching as the waves crashed in, sitting alone on a park bench. I had met a couple other friends, but no one that I really connected with. And there was only a couple weeks left in my internship while I was there. And as I was sitting there, this girl, she walked past me once, and she saw me writing in my book. We made eye contact, and it was like she could read my mind, or she could read my soul. Something was going on there. I just kind of, I'm like, okay, yeah, just keep writing my journals, drawing like diagrams of trees and things like that. And then she comes back again, and she just kind of walks up to me, very confidently, just nonchalantly, and just kind of stands in front of me. And she's like, hey, I want to ask you a question. Oh, yeah, sure, absolutely, go ahead. Do you want to change the world? Well, yeah. Yes, absolutely, I do. I am a young adult. It is my responsibility to help change the world, to not only be a part of it, but to be an active contributor of what it will become, for the future generations to follow as well. And so this question, it sparked something. And then out of that came this meeting, came this moment. And then through there, I ended up spending the rest of hours turned into nights. And then her boyfriend was there, and the three of us were just like hanging out on a trampoline in the backyard, and we were just looking at the stars, and we were talking about life. And suddenly, ideas that I started having and was talking in my head, other people were saying them back to me. And I started thinking about out loud, and I was like, wait a second. Things aren't the same anymore. They are the same, but how I'm seeing them has changed. There's been a shift in my paradigm. And what was interesting is that these ideas, it wasn't so much remembering, it wasn't so much feeling as if I was learning something new, but more so remembering something old. Something very, very old within my heart, within my soul. And so at that point, I would look at a tree, and a tree was no longer just a tree. Suddenly a tree were the veins in my arms, were the branches of a river, were the strikes of lightning. My goodness, why are these patterns showing up all throughout nature? And am I a part of it? Suddenly a spiral was no longer just a spiral. The spiral on my fingertip. It's the same spiral of the galaxy. It's the same spiral of a pine cone. It's the same spiral that we're finding all throughout nature. What I would eventually learn to be known as sacred geometry was becoming apparent to me. And this is something that I was starting to become more aware of, and suddenly, even then, I looked at a tree and I'm like, okay, here's this thing. It's got roots going up, it's got branches going up, it's got roots going down. And yet, if you turn it sideways, suddenly it becomes what may be a theoretical model for time. There's quantum parallel realities in the future, quantum parallel realities in the past. The trunk is the present moment, and here we are at the nexus of this now. And so, out of this experience, the synchronicity started happening. The universe was talking to me. I was meeting people. I was finding my tribe. And that night, it was the last night. We had hung out a few times, and it was the last night that I was there in Vancouver. I was flying out in the morning, and they said, we have one more friend who we would really like you to be able to meet. It's our good friend. His name is Dimitri. And so we went and we met Dimitri, and the four of us were sitting on a beach, and we watched the sunrise together. And through the conversations that we had with Dimitri and my other friends, and just connecting with our breath and meditating, suddenly things were realized. My goodness, we are in an ocean of energy right now. And there's something about this reality, something pristine, something mystical, something dreamlike. And the dreamlike nature of this reality also taught me something. Is that if this is a dream, then we can learn how to wake up within it. And if we wake up within it, then we can learn how to change it. We can learn how to create it. We are the lucid dreamers of the shared dream reality. And so this inspired me. No longer was it just theory, it was a direct experience from what Dimitri had told me and the meetings with my friends. I brought this back with me to London. And at this point, I felt the call. I felt the call of consciousness. And what is consciousness? Consciousness is awareness. You are consciousness. We are in an ocean of consciousness. Consciousness is life. Consciousness is energy. Consciousness is us. And so I knew that I wanted to help change the world. And how was I going to do it? That was the question. The question was not only how, but what was needed. And so at that point, being a media creator, I thought to myself, yes, storytelling, inspirational content, a 5-minute video that I can put out a very powerful idea. And this started picking up. And suddenly, Paradigm Shift Central became a club in Fanshawe College. And we started sending out invitations, and we started inviting people into our meetings, and we started having people coming in talking about mindfulness, meditation, Reiki, energy healing, lucid dreaming, quantum mechanics, and of course, Sasquatch. And so, out of this, more people started coming into the circle. And we started to realize that there were more people waking up to this. And the journey has continued, and the story has continued, and more people are connecting. And that was when my friend said, hey, I've got this button machine. How about we make some buttons and put your website on it? And I'm like, ooh, I like the sounds of that. How about we do some free hugs? And then we'll give people buttons once they come up and talk to us. And we can give out the buttons, and we got some buttons here, and so here you go, Andy, have a button there. Perfect, buddy, thanks.
Get the hug later.
Oh, absolutely, right? So anyways, from there, the story started continuing. And as I started stepping into this natural role of leadership, what I wanted to be able to do was not just tell a story, but invite people to be a part of this story. The story of this awakening of consciousness, the story of the nurturing of the seed of the superhero within inside each and every one of us. This awareness of how synchronicity works, that when I go out, when you go out, when we go out, and we stand on a corner doing free hugs, the right people will find us at the right time. And hey, you know what's really fun? When you dress up like Spider-Man doing it, I got my board shorts on, and I got my lightsaber spinning, and I'm skateboarding down the road, and it's Halloween night, and there's drunk people watching me going, whoa, ah, yeah. And then they come over, and then we have a party, and we talk, and then I give them a button, and they're just like, dude, I just had lucid dreams last night. This is amazing. I can't believe we met you. You're such a trip. Oh my goodness, I want to connect to your project. I want to be a part of your community. I want to be a part of your story. I want to connect with your network of entrepreneurs and creators and be a part of what it is that is happening here. And so out of this, my intention, my story that I have to share for each and every single one of us is that each of us is that superhero, because each one of us is that dreamer waking up within the dream. And it is the little things that make the big difference. It is the hug. And out of this, it was never my intention to tell people what to think. I had my own experience, but it was rather understanding and appreciating that each one of us has those individual moments where we go, aha, I see this reality, and no longer am I something separate from it, but it is me, I am it. It is all interconnected, and suddenly we are not the single speck in an infinite vast universe, but we ourselves are the center of our own universe within this shared dream reality. And so out of this, I want to leave you with a reminder that be it a hug, be it a smile, be it an opportunity to have a conversation with someone, it is those acts of compassion, those acts of kindness, those acts of empathy that truly make the difference. And by changing one person's day, one person's moment, you change their world. And when we change their world, we change the world. And we lead by example, we change the pattern, we change the flow, we shift the paradigms, we show other people that they can do this too. That yeah, there's going to be some people who might look at you and be like, that guy's a weirdo. I'm still curious as to why he's doing it, and I'm going to tell my friends about this later, and I wonder why I'm so critically judgmental about it, but next time I see him, I want to give him a hug. And that's what happens when we give ourselves the permission to be who we are, as the superheroes that we have always been. And so I only have one last question for each and every single one of you. Do you want to help change the world? Yes.